welcome to the Peer Support Podcast. Today's podcast is about disability and mental health and is presented to you by Rachel, that's me, hello, and Holly.
That's me, hello everyone.
And I'm a peer support worker who works within the Wellbeing Service, and Holly is also working within the Wellbeing Service. So today's podcast will cover what are peer support workers, disability and mental health, and we'll be sharing Holly's story of living with disability and mental health challenges. We hope that you come away from today's podcast with an understanding of living with disability and mental health challenges. Just to introduce peer support work to you, just in case you don't know what that is. So peer support workers all have their own experience of living with mental health challenges, and the idea of our job is that we share our experience of this with others, along with our recovery stories to offer hope. We use our experience of recovery to help people to make sense of what they are going through and to explore what may support them in their own recovery. So, like I say, today's podcast has actually been inspired by Norfolk Disability Pride, and Holly has kindly joined me to share her own experiences of living with disability and mental health challenges. So welcome, Holly.
Hi Rachel, thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. So I guess we can kind of, start where you want to, really. I mean, would you like sort of tell us a little bit about yourself and your experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure that I've briefly mentioned in previous episodes that alongside my mental health struggles, I also have a disability. I have mild cerebral palsy, which has been with me all my life. It's something that I was born with, and of course brings with it extra challenges to my life, and in some ways, I suppose can also affect my well-being and my mental health as well. So I just thought it was an important conversation to have, really, about the experience of living with mental health struggles, but also with the added thing of having a disability also.
And like you say, when we're managing our mental health struggles, it's a big enough thing anyway, isn't it, in terms of how that can make us feel, how it changes how things work in our bodies. I mean, my sort of struggle with anxiety has changed my posture. So when I'm anxious, I kind of make myself small as such, and kind of hunch over, which obviously adds tension in my neck and tension in my jaw, but it also makes my IBS, so irritable bowel syndrome, really unpleasant to deal with, because it makes it kind of flare up. And like you've just kind of said, I'm kind of thinking, well, that's difficult enough for me with long-term conditions and sort of managing those different things as well. But like you say, when we've put disability into the mix as well, that's managing sort of quite a different thing. And Holly, do you kind of find that, like you said, if you're experiencing additional challenges with your disability, that it has an impact on your mental health? And would you say the opposite happens as well? So if you're experiencing increased challenges with your mental health, does it make your disability sort of harder, or is it sort of much the same?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The two very much come together almost, I would say. And like you've just mentioned, Rachel, if I'm struggling with my mental health, then that will also have an impact on my physical health as well. So yeah, definitely. And with my cerebral palsy comes a lot of tiredness, and that's the case with struggling with mental health as well. So sometimes it can be really difficult to know which one is kind of I suppose presenting itself at a certain time. Sometimes it will be, and sometimes it's the two together that merge, and quite often, sometimes if they come together, that can make one big kind of, makes it one big challenge, I suppose, all at once. And so, yeah, I would say definitely it's, and also bearing in mind that having a disability is not who you are. It's not your whole person. It's one part of you. So, you know, alongside having mental health struggles and a disability, I'm still me as a person. So there are still things that are going to happen or that I'm going to experience, despite my disability or and my mental health. So, it's something that is there but doesn't define me as a person, and I think that's important to say.
Yes, and like you say, when we're managing mental health challenges, it's not all that we are. It might kind of possibly run through me like a bit of a stick of rock kind of thing,
Yeah,
if that makes sense. But it's not all defining. So it's not like, oh yes, well this is me. I'm just anxious. It's like, well, hello, I'm Rachel. I happen to be, living with anxiety, but it isn't, it isn't all that I am, but like you say, when we're finding things difficult and it's in our face as such, it can feel for me like, oh, the anxiety's taken over now, and
definitely.
I'm not there. But it was interesting, like you said, trying to, like, with your tiredness, trying to work out, well, is this my cerebral palsy talking? Is this my mental health talking? Or is it a combination of both? And, I can feel that too, in terms of, am I physically tired? Am I mentally tired? Because they do feel different to me, and for me, it's like, I may have to react differently to what's causing it. So, like physical tiredness, it might be, well, it might be I just need to put my feet up and rest. But if it's mental tiredness, it's the interesting thing of, well, do I actually need to be doing more to be feeling better? And it's quite kind of strange. And like I say, I don't have a disability, but I do have sort of different long-term conditions that can kind of have an impact. And Holly, when you're feeling like that, is there anything that really helps you? So you're having this feeling of tiredness, and perhaps it's the feeling of, oh, I'm not quite sure what's causing this. Is there sort of certain things that sort of support you through and kind of make you sort of deal with it and sort of deal with it a little bit better as such?
Yeah, so I guess like everyone else, quite often I have to pace myself. I have to think. So, for example, if I've got something planned in a day, I'm meeting a friend, and we're meeting for the whole day, or we're meeting for a large part of the day, I know at the end of that few hours I'm going to feel quite tired. So I may not then arrange something else after that. So I may go home and rest for a little bit. Um, and I think it's really just being in tune with yourself and your own body. And of course, I've lived with my condition all my life, so I've got very used to figuring out, what is too much, and what I can take on without feeling too much tiredness or too much extreme tiredness. So it is kind of trying to, because I'm not any different to anyone else, especially now restrictions are lifted. I want to be getting out there. I want to socialise. I want to do well in my job. I've got to do the housework, and all those things that all of us have to do. But it's, I suppose, trying to streamline those things so that they're getting done, but in a way that isn't going to cause extreme fatigue, which is can be quite a challenge. Especially if the ambition and the desire is there to do all these things.
Yes, sometimes we can be our own worst enemy, can't we? We
Yeah.
can kind of, like you say, go, right, I've got the motivation to do this, I've got the energy to get done, I'll just get that done, and I'll just do this and this at the same time as well. And I've kind of learned myself from when I crash, it's like, ooh, what happened here?
Yeah.
What's going on here? And it was interesting, you're kind of talking about pacing, because I know, that the way that I've been able to sort of manage my own sort of difficulties is very much by looking in the diary and kind of going, right, okay, I've got this going on this day, and I know that my anxiety will be triggered. So what I need to do is a great big dollop of self-care the next day, and look at, and it might be like doing something nice. So I mean, prior to COVID, I went to the theatre, and that's a big thing for me because I've got to confront, how my anxiety feels about that. But worked through it, all good. Really, really enjoyed it, but I knew because I had to work through that anxiety first and work out, what am I going to do? How am I going to look after myself? I knew from experience that the next day I would be pretty much good for nothing. So, I kind of worked it out that I didn't work the next day, sort of had the day off. And that was just through previously going to the theatre on a Sunday and having to go to work on the Monday and then going, why do I feel so dreadful? And those were for nice things,
I think, absolutely.
Like you say, when we get to know ourselves, whether that's, the physical side to us, the mental health sort of side of us, and it's kind of working out, okay, I want to do this because, like you said, I'm not going to be held back by this. I'm not going to be defined by this. I want to, but I'm going to be tired. And it's like you say, kind of having that time afterwards for rest and recuperation and looking after yourself, and also congratulating ourselves. When we've gone out, and acknowledge that we're going to be tired, it's going to feel a little bit afterwards, but actually it's kind of worth it. And Holly, the kind of opposite thing occurs to me. So is there anything that doesn't help you? So kind of you sort of dealing with your disability and sort of mental health challenges. Is there anything that you're like, oh no, please don't do that because that just doesn't help?
I think an interesting one actually that's just come to my mind. When I was back in college, I studied performing arts, and of course, doing plays and lots of different bits and pieces. We'd be given props to use, and the worst thing for me is being overloaded with things, because sometimes balance is a little bit of an issue, and sometimes my coordination can be a bit off. So giving me lots of things to hang on to can actually hold me back. And I do remember one particular play where I was just given all these different props that I had to kind of hold whilst trying to perform. And that's a very specific example to performing on stage, but the same is true in everyday life. If I'm overloaded with in terms of like how my disability affects me physically, if I'm overloaded with a lot of stuff, then that's when things start to go wrong. And I suppose the same is true with anything really. With a lot of us, I think that's true. If we're overloaded with too many things at once, we lose our balance in one way or another. So that for me is a big kind of I suppose a hindrance in a way. I'm much better kind of just being me without too many props to hang on to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking to me, Holly, and I am an extremely clumsy person. Anyone who's worked with me in an office, sort of listening to this in terms of wellbeing stuff, would probably be smiling and going, "Yes, we've seen Rachel, walk into stuff and fall over and things like that." And it's knowing ourselves, isn't it?
Yes.
And I'm also thinking, so say if we were in an office and I'm going, "Oh, Holly, we need to take this here, here, and here. Can you hold this, this, and this?"
Yeah.
Are you able then to have that vulnerable conversation and sort of that boundaried conversation of, "I'd love to help you, but I need to do it like this and that"? I mean, is that something that you find sort of you're able to do?
I think that's a really good, really important question to ask me, because I think that's something I've got better at as I've got a little bit older. I think when you're a bit younger, there's that eagerness to please. And I still, to be honest, I still have that desire to please and make people happy. But I have got better over time at saying, actually, no, I can't do that. It's too much. Or I can hold that and that, but not those things, And again, the same is true with in other aspects of life, I guess, as well. The same as for any of us. I think that's where living with a disability and mental health struggles can become tricky, because not unlike mental health struggles, my disability is very largely invisible. I mean, I'm very lucky that my form of cerebral palsy is very mild, and that's a great thing. But with that comes invisibility sometimes, and so that conversation, it needs to be had sometimes, where I need to explain, actually, I'm not able to do that. Or it can be the simplest thing that someone might not even think of, like not being able to tie my shoelaces, for example. Because I can see people doing it and it looks simple, but my hands won't do that. So yeah, it's quite often you do have to have those conversations sometimes, unless of course you're with someone that has known you a long time and already understands. And I think the same with mental health struggles. The more open and honest you are early on, the easier it is. And that takes time, I think, to get to that point, though.
And that's the power of vulnerable conversations and the power of vulnerability, isn't it? In terms of, kind of not going, "Oh God, here I go again. I'm going to have to explain this again," but actually, kind of saying how it is. I mean, completely different, but kind of on the same theme is like, so I grind my teeth in my sleep. It's not a very good habit. It causes me pain and difficulty, and I'm supposed to wear a mouth guard in my sleep to prevent it. Only the mouth guard isn't the most comfortable thing in the world to wear. It interrupts my sleep, makes me drool. It's really attractive. And I really, really struggle with it. And when I go to my dentist, she'll be like, "Okay, so Rachel, tell me about, your teeth. Have you been wearing your mouth guard?" And it's the easy one of going, "Yes, of course I have." But she'll see the evidence that, that I really, really haven't. And I ended up having this lovely vulnerable conversation with her and going, "Look, I have anxiety, and if I don't get good sleep, if I don't get quality sleep, and if it's interrupted, the effect that it has is that it makes me more hypervigilant and my anxiety ramps up, and I have to deal with that, and it can be really quite challenging." Versus wearing my mouth guard and my teeth being looked after and not having a clicky jaw, but, not then having to deal with the anxiety. And I said to her, at the minute I've had to weigh it up, and I've weighed it up in terms of I need the good sleep to manage that. And I said, I know that's not what she wants to hear, but actually it was lovely because I was vulnerable and said, this is why I'm not doing at the minute what you've asked me to do.
Yeah.
And she came back with, yeah, I really understand that. And we looked at, well, let's see how you can, so like some graded exposure to wearing it, which I'm still kind of working on. But it's the power of that conversation of saying, this is what this does. I've got to weigh this up. I've got to try these sort of different things. And when that vulnerability is listened to and cared for, and the response you get back, I can imagine, Holly, if we're in that office and I'm trying to give you loads of stuff to hold, and you're saying, well, I can take that and that, but we might have to do several trips, and that's fine. And it would be the whole, okay, yeah, that's fine, that's what we'll do kind of thing. So yeah, it's kind of sort of different sort of strategies like that. And like you say, you've lived with your cerebral palsy, all your life. Is there sort of anything in sort of the present, that as you've sort of grown up as such, stuff that you've learned? Is there anything that you've really sort of learned from and sort of really helps you sort of in this present time?
Yeah, I mean, I hope that I'm quite good at, because having a disability is not all negative. That you're still a person. You're a person, and you have so many strengths. And I've been fortunate enough, especially in recent years, to demonstrate my strengths, and my disability is part of that, because actually in a lot of ways it's an advantage, because I'm much more able to relate to people, and I've got this extra life experience, and I think it's very empowering to realize that actually it's, yes, of course there are difficulties with a disability, but there are so many opportunities as well to turn it on its head almost, I think, and hopefully make some kind of difference as well. I mean, over the last few years, I've been able to grow professionally and in my personal life, and I think for a long time I did think that certain things wouldn't be possible because of my disability and because of my mental health struggles. But I can say very proudly that actually I've come to realise that actually the things that I thought would never be possible are possible, and that I'm so much more capable than I ever thought I was. And that's a great place to get to. I'm really proud to get to that point where I can see opportunities and I can see myself achieving things and growing, is amazing. And I hope, by saying that, it gives other people that kind of hope, that's, despite whatever other challenges you're facing or will face, there are possibilities, always possibilities, and always ways forwards. And it's about adapting, giving yourself time, and being open and honest. Like we said, having open and honest conversations with people is a complete game changer, I think, as well. And owning it, realizing that you are a whole person, and that, if there's something you want to achieve badly enough, you will do it. You will achieve it.
And like you say, it's seeing the strengths in our situation, whatever that situation
Yes.
is. And I know sometimes that's easier said than done.
Yes.
When we're
Absolutely.
we're facing a setback, whether that's a mental health or a physical health one, sometimes it can be very difficult to go, whoa, well, what's the strength in this,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
actually, it's something that I've had to learn to do, it's in terms of stuff like going, well, actually, yeah, that might have gone wrong and that might have gone wrong and I can't do this because of this, but I can do these things. And it's kind of, it's focusing on those. And even if in those, those darker times where we're just putting one foot in front of the other, well, the strength in that is that actually, you're just putting one foot in front of the other. You know, whether that's physically speaking, metaphorically speaking, or anything like that. And Holly, it's really nice to sort of end this podcast on that positive note of, like you say, this is what I've learned, that this doesn't define me. It's teaching me different things, and that actually, things that you previously might have thought, oh, I can't do that. Actually, you've learned that, well, I can try that, I can give that a go. And I think that's, that's a really positive message for anybody sort of listening to today's podcast. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's really sort of interesting to, to hear how you've sort of managed both of those aspects in your life, and how you're managing to boss it, really, for want of a better term. So today's podcast has covered Holly's story of living with disability and mental health challenges, and our next podcast will be looking at World Mental Health Day. You can find today's links in today's podcast in the podcast notes. Oh, sorry, Holly, I stopped then because I interrupted you.
That's no problem.
I'll let you do the next bit, Holly.
So yeah, if you've been listening to today's podcast episode and would like to know more about referring into the Wellbeing Service, you can self-refer to the Wellbeing Service and can do so via our website and by calling us as well.
Thank you for that, Holly. Best laid plans of mice and men. So if you're listening to today's podcast and currently having treatment within the Wellbeing Service and you'd like to have peer support, then please do speak to your therapist who can make the referral for you. So thank you for listening to today's podcast, and thank you so much, Holly, for joining me. And like I say, you can join us again if you wish to, and our next podcast will be focusing on World Mental Health Day. So like I say, thank you for listening, and it's goodbye from me. Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Thank you so much for listening.